Hi, I'm Dr. Hodges. This is English 200 World Lit. Welcome. Um, the syllabus is a contract, and so I have to go over it with you. First thing to note is that I'm working from home. Um, I have several of the risk factors for having a really bad outcome if I were to catch COVID. And particularly since this is the last semester before I retire, I am simply not willing to put myself at risk. Nor, frankly, do I want to put you at risk by having physical classes. Over 350,000 people just in this country have died from COVID. And I don't want you being on my conscience for that. So we're going to do this course fully online. Uh, Now that means that I don't have conference hours as such. However, I will be online at least part of the time in the mornings and afternoons, Monday through Friday. So email me at hodgesdh@graham.edu or send me a message in Canvas, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can with that response. Um, Now, if you email me at 1 o'clock in the morning or on the weekend, it's gonna be Monday before I get back to you. I do have a life outside of work, and I'm not on call 24/7, 365. Nobody in their right mind can be. Now you can read the description and objective. Basically, we're going to read some really good literature from the ancient world up to the Renaissance. Some really good stories. Um, and I love ancient literature. I think it's much better than anything's being produced nowadays because it clarifies basic human experiences, which have been remarkably constant throughout human history and in various cultures. Now, how different cultures understand those experiences is very, very different. Um, you may think that people have always thought about things pretty much the way that you do. Nothing could be further from the truth. Um, And to illustrate that, I like to use another class that I teach, Humanities 202 Non-Western Culture, which focuses on Asia. Uh, and we used to team teach that course. My background is actually in philosophy and religion. My college major was philosophy and religion, a combined major along with English literature. Um, that really shows in the way that I teach this course, by the way. And So I taught a unit on the philosophies and religions of Asia. My longtime office mate, Dr. Jim Kim, who is currently on leave, taught a unit on history and literature because that's his bailiwick. And we had a part-time faculty member who was a grad student over at Tech, named Mr. Yu from mainland China, People's Republic. Um, and he taught a unit on Chinese culture. And I always liked when he was teaching the day that he talked about Chinese food, which is not what you get at Peking House. That's Americanized Chinese. I always look forward to when he put up on the overhead the ingredients for a dish called Kailin Taute. And I like to watch the students' reaction when they saw that the main ingredient was a small dog. Many of them reacted with horror at the idea of eating dog. Probably some of you did as well, though I don't get to see you. That's one of the drawbacks of teaching an internet course as opposed to in person. Um, but why is that? Well, in our society, we don't eat dogs. We uh, we we have dogs as pets. In fact, my wife and I have a fur baby, um, a little a little feist. Um, but think about how the role that a pet plays within a family. I think there's a very specific role, and the clue is how people talk to their pets. Oh, that's a good girl. Okay. To what other creature do we speak in that kind of voice? The answer, of course, is a small child. Pets function as substitute children. In fact, when I take our dog to the vet, they refer to me as her daddy. And my wife and I refer to ourselves as Dee Dee's mama and daddy. Well, every society has a taboo against eating one's children. And what we do, unconsciously usually, is that we extend that taboo to include we don't eat the animals that we typically keep as pets. The most popular animal to have as a pet is a dog. Second most popular is a cat. And anything else is a distant third. Those are the two primary, probably over 90% of pets in America are dogs or cats. Well, in parts of Asia, dogs and cats are raised as food animals, the same way that my late father in law used to raise cattle. And dad had no trouble reaching into the freezer and pulling out a package of steaks and telling you what cow they'd come from and that cow's life history. And I had no trouble listening to all that and then helping him eat those steaks. In fact, my father in law's steaks and my mother in law's biscuits were the secret weapon that my wife used to reel me in. Ladies, what you've heard about the way to a man's heart, it's true. In parts in India, people would react with the same kind of horror to the idea of eating beef as many of you had to the idea of eating dog. Because in India, the cow is sacred. Um, and, if you want to get in the middle of a riot in India, herd a cow. Now, what's the point of all that? It's culture. People's beliefs and values are different in different times and different places. Okay? It's not about the meat. Okay? Meat from a dog or a cat is not poisonous, provided they've been raised in sanitary conditions like any other food animal. Um, it's perfectly safe. But Our emotional reaction is because of the culture that we grow up in, influencing how we feel about things, how we think about things. We are all products of the communities in which we grow up. Frankly, if we grew up in a different community, we would be different people. Okay? And we're going to see some of that in the literature that we're going to be studying this semester. I always, when I look at literature, I look in terms of um, what does this tell us about people's beliefs and values, how they see themselves, and the world around them. Now, your textbook is the Norton Anthology of World Literature, fourth edition, volumes A, B, and C. Volume A looks like so. Volume B and Volume C. You need all three volumes. Okay? There is no way you can study literature without reading it. Just like there's no way to learn to swim without getting in the water. Okay? There's no way to study art without looking at art. Okay? I've taught at Grambling for 30 years. I am aware that a lot of students believe that you can get by without having the book. That idea never crossed my mind when I was in college, and I'm glad it didn't because it's a really dumb idea, and particularly in literature. Okay? Um, Depending on the whether you get a new copy or a used copy of the three textbooks, it's going to run somewhere from about 70 to $90. Um, but it will cost you a lot more than that to have to take the class over again. And I hope you hear what I'm saying. Okay? If you're not reading the literature, you're not going to pass the class. It is that simple. Um, Now, I don't understand why anybody would want to take the same class more than once. But if you want to do that, be my guest. I will not stop you. Okay? I am old school. The grades you earned will be the grades you get. Your answers to the discussions have to demonstrate to me that you have read the literature. You have to engage the literature specifically. Okay? Things like Wikipedia, Sparks Notes, Course Hero, while they may have their place, are not an adequate substitute. They may address other aspects of the literature than what I asked you to address. In some cases, we're reading excerpts from much longer works. They may talk about a completely different part of the work that's not even in the reading assignment that you have. And if you go that route, you're going to get 0 points. Okay? 0. Because you're showing me you didn't do the assignment. Okay? You have to read. And internet courses put an even higher emphasis on student reading than regular courses do. Okay? They are, by the way, more work for both student and professor. I learned that the hard way this past year when all of a sudden we had to take all of our courses online last spring, when all hell broke loose. And it's been that way. Okay? So you're going to have to read. Now, if you continue down the syllabus, the course is divided into a series of modules. Module 1 is the introduction, which has only one lesson in it, which is going to be course information and some materials I'll give you on Canvas on research and plagiarism. And then we get into the, starting January the 13th, we get into the ancient Near East, which is Module 2, includes Egypt, 2 lessons on Egypt, 2 on Mesopotamia. There's a reading quiz that you'll take on Canvas on that literature, and then we'll the module concludes with 3 lessons on the Hebrew Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament. I use the term Hebrew Bible because it's only the Old Testament if you have a newer testament, and the only people who have a New Testament are Christians. The Hebrew Bible is the Bible for Judaism. The Jewish Bible contains the same books as the Christian Old Testament, though it arranges them in a different order. And then there's a second reading test on the Hebrew Bible. Notice that's January 29th. So Module 1, the Ancient Near East, is going to basically take us through the month of January. Then we'll, in February, look at some material from ancient Greece and Rome. At the very end of February and into March, we will study Asian literature, a little bit from India, a little bit from China, a little bit from Japan. I want to give you some exposure to cultures that are not Western. And then Module 5, the Middle Ages and Renaissance. We'll look at the New Testament and the Quran, Christian and Muslim scriptures. Some other early medieval literature in the epics of Shahnameh and the Song of Roland. Then some medieval and Renaissance poetry. And that ends up at the end of March. And then the first week in April is final exams. The university has condensed the calendar to avoid having you leave and then come back, because every time that happens, there is a greater risk of spreading COVID. And it's going to be probably into the summer before the virus is contained. When enough people take the vaccine, it's going to take that long for enough doses to be available. And yes, I'm going to take it as soon as they'll let me. My son is actually, who is the animal curator at the zoo over in Monroe, by the way, is actually participating in the trials for one of the vaccines. So he's already gotten it as kind of a guinea pig. He's had no problems with it, and maybe more importantly, he hasn't gotten COVID. I just saw on the internet, I'm recording this on January 7th, that a baseball player that I grew up being able to watch, Hank Aaron, rolled up his sleeve and got the vaccine. And he commented that he was proud to do it because, there is, for good reason, Okay, I understand why, but there is some skepticism, particularly in the African American community, about uh, 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 the medical system. Um, and while I do understand the reasons for that historically, the fact is that COVID has hit communities of color um, even harder than other communities. And the reason for that has to do with socioeconomics, I think. Um, people like me can work from home, um, but working class families who have jobs where you can't work from home, that puts you at increased risk, um, as does having more people in the household. Because, once one person in the household gets it, pretty much everybody's going to get it. Um, and so you need to get the vaccine as soon as you can. You can't do it yet because they're prioritizing people who are at the highest risk. Um, but anyway, our final exams are April 6th to 9th. And the last of your online work has to be in on April the 9th, so that I can process grades the following week. Each assignment, and there are online discussions that take the place of class sessions. Each of those discussions is based not only on specific readings, but also will give you some explanatory videos that are intended to try to replace the information that I would share with you in class. After all, I have spent my adult life reading and studying this material, and shame on me if I don't know more about it than you do. And I'm under the impression it's my job to try to help you understand it better than you would likely understand it on your own. And so, I have to have some way of communicating that to you. And I do that with some videos, some of which are like this one that I've made. Others are I found on YouTube. And yeah, I know you can find videos on YouTube too, but you have to understand the literature in order to be able to evaluate whether a given video is any good or not. Um, just because somebody puts something online doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. If you don't believe me, look at some of the shit that Donald Trump has posted. Um, thank God he'll only be president at most for another 2 weeks. But anyway, that's the course content. Each assignment, the discussions, and also the reading quizzes that you'll take on each block of material um, has a due date, and they will generally be available for a while after the due date, but they're not available forever. Okay, they have an available until date. It's important that you take each assignment in sequence. Start at the beginning and work your way down on the modules page on Canvas, because everything builds on what goes before it. So, when you finish a lesson, don't reach up and flush your head, um, because that material may come up again later on. Uh, the present is always influenced by the past. And so, for example, in Mesopotamian literature, we're going to read the Epic of Gilgamesh. That has some influence on Homer's Iliad that we'll read when we get to Greece and Rome. So, things build on what went before. That's why history is always relevant. And by the way, that carryover applies not just within this course, but within your whole curriculum. For example, the reason why you take freshman composition is to learn how to write the research papers that you have to write in some of your classes. The professor in your literature class or your history class or your science class who assigns you to write a paper is not going to go over how you write a paper. They expect you to know that from your freshman comp. And so you're expected to take the skills that you learn in one class and the information you learn in one class and carry it over to other classes. Each class does not stand alone in isolation. Learning activities, you're going to read the textbook, and I've got a few other readings that I'll give you on Canvas. I've got the videos that you need to watch, and I would encourage you to take notes on them because that will help you to remember what is said. I've got some graphics to share with you as well. You participate in online discussions. I'm going to ask you to respond to questions about what you have read. You'll take reading tests, and I do have practice quiz for the final exam. Um, Special course requirements. Okay, obviously you need internet access. And cell phones may not always be adequate because at least once you're going to need to be able to read and edit a Microsoft Word document. Now, a lot of stuff is in PDFs, but I have at least one Word document you're going to need to be able to access. And also, cell phones don't always play nice with the quizzes on Canvas. Okay, and I can't fix that. Frankly, I have no idea how computers work. I grew up before there were computers. Or, well, the early computers were out, but they filled up an entire room and they ran on punch cards. No hard drives, believe it or not. Yeah, I was in college in the 1970s, okay? Um, but I do know that cell phones don't always work with Canvas. And especially, I've had students have problems trying to do the quizzes on their cell phones. For some reason, they don't talk to each other very well. And if the answers are not recorded in Canvas, I can't grade it. Grades are based on how much of the course material you learn. I don't give grades. I calculate them and record them. Okay. The reading tests each has its own point value, but they all add up to 310 points. There's an objective final exam with some broad questions about the literature and also some questions about research and plagiarism. Is worth 100 points. and the online discussions add up to 390 points. And so there's 800 points possible on the semester. 90% of that is 720, and so you need at least 720 points to make an A in the 90% range. In the 80% range is a B, in the 70% range a C, the 60% range a D, and anything below that results in me inviting you to take the course again, and you'll be taking it with a different professor because this is my last semester. Highlighted. Grades are based on performance, not need. If you need to make a certain grade in order to keep your scholarship or to retain athletic eligibility or to stay off of probation or whatever, you are responsible for making that grade. It's not my responsibility to rescue you when you screwed up. Okay, now, because I'm going to have everything pretty much wrapped up as far as putting the course up as the semester starts, unlike fall semester and certainly unlike spring when we had to shift online. I've going to have a little more time, and so I'm going to start to help you keep up with where your grade really is. If you don't turn in an assignment by the due date, I'm going to mark it as a 0. Now, as I said, that assignment will continue to be available for a while, and you can do it, and the 0 will go away. But I will put it in because Canvas, by default, doesn't include assignments that don't have a grade on them when it calculates your grade. And that leads students to a false sense of security. I had a student in my philosophy class who thought she had a B, but she didn't bother doing any of the unit exams, which made up a huge chunk of a grade. And so when I calculate her grade with a 0 in there, instead of making a B, she made an F. So when you check your grades, I strongly encourage you to uncheck the box that says calculate based only on graded assignments. Now, early in the semester, that's going to freak you out too, because all of the assignments are going to be up, even though they're not due. Canvas will count them. I don't have a solution for that. Canvas does not have a setting that allows me to say, don't count this until the due date. I wish it did, but software engineers never talk to professors about what we need the software to do. They think they already know everything. And so I don't have a solution for that. The way to avoid that problem on your end is to keep up with the assignments and make sure you get them done and done well, okay? Just because an assignment is worth up to X number of points, that doesn't mean that just anything you turn in is going to get that number of points. I'm going to read your responses and grade them. Okay? And I give you on Canvas the rubric that I use for doing that. You know, the big thing is your response has to be original. Don't plagiarize off of Wikipedia or Coursera or whatever. And it has to show me that you read the literature. If you don't understand something just right, I can deal with that. But if you're plagiarizing or you're not reading, okay, you're wasting my time and your money. Don't do that. I do not know. My parents helped pay my way through college. I worked summers to help too, and I got an academic scholarship, without which we would not have been able to afford the college I went to, Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida, which is where I grew up. I don't know what my dad would have done if I'd brought D's and F's home from college. I didn't want to find out. My dad was a drill sergeant in the Army during World War II. I'm pretty sure it would have hurt. If something happens at the very end of the semester and you're doing okay up to that point, send me an email or get somebody to send me an email, and let me know what's going on, and then I may have options. If you just don't do things, then that's a zero. Okay. Um, I, and I'm not interested in excuses. Okay. If you get sick or something, let me know. I can extend deadlines up to a point. Okay. But just not doing something is not going to fly. Okay. I've got some instructions on using Canvas. The reading quizzes, I give you up to 5 attempts, and I take the highest score. So, and of course, they're open book. Of course, that only helps if you have the book, right? Um, uh, accommodations for disabilities, I've got some in the standard information about that. Uh, I do want to highlight the last thing on the syllabus, and it's in a box. How to read your textbook and make an A in World Lit. Okay, read the introduction to each piece of literature and culture that we study to get an overview of what it contains, and the background against which this is written. And then look for what the introduction says is in there. Look for it in the text until you find it. Okay, they wouldn't have said it was there if it wasn't there. Find it. When you come across key terms that you don't understand, look them up. Okay. Analyze the text carefully. Um, Narrative literature, a story, um, know the major characters, how they're related to each other, or the connections between them, um, their beliefs, their motivations, their action. Uh, they will explain themselves in what they say. Not just what they do, but why they do it, what they're thinking as they do it. For lyric poetry, and we'll talk about what that is, but it's expressing feelings. So understand the feelings that are being expressed and the reasons for those feelings. We're going to read some religious texts, understand the beliefs and practices of the community that comes from. And it doesn't matter whether you share those beliefs or not. Okay? People don't act on the basis of what you believe, they act on the basis of what they believe. You know, when you're watching the videos, which replace the class each day, take notes. Review the book in notes to seal it in your mind. Now, I'm helping you with that actually because I'm asking you to write something in response for each lesson. Um, and by the way, you might want to look back at those because I will make some comments about what you've said. Um, and keep up with the schedule. Okay? Don't wait until the last minute to do things. As I said in the email that I sent out to the class um, before classes began, okay, I strongly encourage you to go ahead and get the book immediately, if not sooner. Do not wait until the university issues refund checks because that's probably going to be February. You'll be way behind. You're not going to be able to do quality work. You're going to put your grade in jeopardy. Get the books now. I don't care if you get used books. I don't know if these books are available as an ebook or not. But look on Chegg, look on cheap books, look at thrift books. I don't care where you order it. Bookstore doesn't give me any money. But if you don't have the book, you are not going to be able to do the assignments. And then you're going to make me give you a grade that neither one of us wants you to get. Okay? So don't do that. There's no way that you can study literature without reading it. There are no shortcuts. You're here not just to get a diploma, but to get the education that a diploma represents. A diploma without that education is going to be almost worthless to you, and it's going to make it harder for other Grambling grads to get a job. Because if they hire you and you're not up to snuff, they're going to be reluctant to hire the next Grambling grad. That may not be fair, but it's the way it is. And the fact is that when you graduate, you're going to be competing for jobs with people who went to Tech and LSU and everywhere else. You got to be as good as they are. In fact, you probably have to be better. Okay? Now, that's definitely not fair. But it's real. See, I'll give you 2 courses for the price of one. English 200 World Lit and Reality 101 Introduction to the Real World. Good luck. I look forward to working with you this semester, but I just want to make sure you know what you need to do to be successful.